recap on today's show. Yes, I've been to Asda. We're going to look at how I package the red arrows in for shipping and things like that. So I'll give you guys some ideas. I know a lot of you have asked me how I get commission work around the world. So we'll be looking at finishing off the red arrows, what we did to get them done, and then obviously the packaging. Star Destroyer, yes, she's all finished. Long road project. Don't know, can't work out if I'm glad it's over or not, but we'll be looking at how that one finished up. Started off on the Tornado, yeah, Revell Tornado, made a start this week of that one. We got the cockpit all done, livened it up with a little bit of lead wire, been flattened out to do the harness and things like that, so part one is up on the site now. Reviews, this week we've got reviews from Trumpeter. They've done the 1/48 scale Westland Whirlwind, and we've got a review you're not going to want to miss of the Kitty Corp 1/48 scale Voodoo. Let's just say it's not exactly brilliant. Plus we've got all the SIG news, the group build news, and the other news from the site. Hello, welcome to Flory Models. I'm Flory. Great week this week. Plenty of new members, subscribers, so to be a bit of a flurry of you coming in. Just have to say, remember guys, when you sign up, obviously use your real name. We only use our real names, all right? So when you go to the forum, you need to use your same real name. We all use our proper names in there. We don't use sort of, made up names and things like that and nicknames. Purely because unless you're an A-list celebrity or a mass murderer or something else like that, really there's no reason to it. It makes it more friendly and open and everything else. And also I don't have to come up with stupid names when I'm reading out prize winners and things like that. So if you could, it just saves me editing it, and also you'll get in a lot quicker because the system will detect your real username and allow you straight into the forum. Otherwise what happens is it basically sends me a message and says, I don't know who this is, what do you want me to do? I then come in, edit it for you, change your name over to what the system knows, and then that allows you in. So it just saves a little bit of time and makes everything a bit smoother for you. Remember, if you don't get in straight away once you subscribe, don't panic and resubscribe again and again and again. Sometimes what happens is you get a new screen opens up with where you fill in all your details once you subscribed. If you've got blockers and things like that on, it doesn't allow that pop-up. What happens is system pings me an email after 10 minutes to say they haven't got to come in, what do you want me to do? I then send you a password and a backdoor system to get into where you can fill in all your details, and then you'll be straight in. And again, then just fill out your details for the forum. But as I say, I seem to have a few problems this week for some reason. But there we go. So welcome to all new members. I hope you're finding yourself around all okay. So this week, as I said, amazingly, Star Destroyer finished. So I found myself having a completely empty desk. So what I managed to get on with was with the Tornado, which is one of those things. It's a little bit basic. What I've done is I've livened up the harnesses system by using lead wire, flattened out, painted it, just to liven up the seats a little bit. And with the cockpit, I've used an ink wash and dry brushing to sort of bring it to life because it's decal system on there. Okay, it's not brilliant, but you have to think it's only £20 this particular kit. So really what we're expecting is the aftermarket guys to come along with a nice piece of resin for the cockpit, which would be really nice, all right? And then obviously that would then suit the problems, some nice seats, good to go. And then obviously Edard, they're likely to pop along at any minute and drop in a colour photo etch set for this particular one, which would be a lovely little touch. So you could just sand this detail down and put that in as well. So between the two, I think this will make a absolute stunning kit. The gear seems to be a little bit sort of not brilliant. I think perhaps some new wheel wells, liven them up, might be nice touch. And then perhaps some new gear, but certainly I imagine all these aftermarket parts to be coming in. So anyway, part one of the Tornado build is up now. It basically gets us to this point. We've got the cockpit all finished and we've started putting in the bottom fuselage set. So as I say, these wheel wells aren't exactly brilliant, but what you do notice, this has got ADV or Air Defence Variant written all over this because we've got the little scoops down in these plinths where obviously the new base will be. So the ADF version is definitely right behind this one. I'm going to do it in 9 squadron markings or REF. I think absolutely lovely because it's full wraparound camo instead of being sort of, you know, your boring grey. So I can show you about doing camo work and working with weathering camo work and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to actually getting on with this build. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Also this week we've got part 11, which is the final part of Star Destroyer, which is right there. Big project, massive thank you to everyone sticking by me with this one. I know a lot of you have said, not really your cup of tea, nice to watch it, but everything else, and really thank you for allowing me to fulfill one of my bucket list fantasies, whatever you want to call it, of doing a Star Destroyer. It was a, well, it was 11 part build. It's 12 hours of video for this one up on the site now, of showing, going through all the resin work and all those little areas I normally don't work with. And to be honest, I don't like working with resin like that. It's big, it's messy, it's toxic, and just sanding it and everything, having to have a respirator on and being sweating inside it and everything else. It's not easy stuff to work with, but hopefully you've got a lot out of it and a bit of insight of using resin, doing resin models, obviously painting something like that, which is technically a giant brick, about weathering it, breaking it up. And obviously the LED lighting, as I say, is 256 LEDs in there, and at night it's absolutely stunning. It's just the really bad thing is digital cameras hate it, because you've got the refresh rates with the digital camcorders, even when you're at maximum resolution and things like that, it's still, you get the little flicker because the LEDs have got the refresh rate. You know, obviously just trying to get the angles. When you look at it with the human eye, it looks absolutely stunning. It's just on camera, it's really hard to get out. But we're going to have the final reveal photos, a little bit of video at the end of the show, which will complete us for that actual build. Same time, we were speaking about last week, I asked for your ideas for the next build, and you looked at obviously the stash behind me and we went through. The polling is, and I've got it on my live screen over there at the moment, we actually have the Sky Raider. I picked basically the top 5 nominations that came through. It was pretty difficult. So we've got the Sky Raider, that's the Trumpeter 132nd. That's currently got 31% of the vote. We've got the Jaguar, this is the Kitty Hawk kit, that is currently 16% of the vote. We got the Kitty Hawk F35B, that was number 3 in there, that's got 8% of the vote. We got the Trumpeter MiG-23, that came in 4th with 15% of the vote as we stand at the moment. And we got the Revell 132nd Heinkel 111, that is currently at 28% of the vote. So there really is not a lot between the Sky Raider and the HE111. So, you know, get your votes in, guys. The poll is up in the site, it's in the announcements area. A lot of you have seen it. At the moment we're showing, what, 83 votes, and I only just put it up. So we're doing quite well up there. I'm going to let it run to around about mid next week, because in next week's show I'm going to do the big reveal and look at some of your great work and take a little bit of time going through the silver screen entries finishes, because obviously that finished last week. The medals, they're here, we're going to get all them out and have a big presentation, and obviously the winners will be announced and everything else like that. So that is on next week's show, and obviously we'll make the final decision then, and I can tell you on next week's show what the upcoming builds are going to be, because as I said, I've got plenty of room now, I can get on with multiple builds. So we're going to have 2 or 3 builds on the go at once, which should keep everybody really happy as we're moving through. A couple of things I want to talk about just as we're here. Obviously I get a lot of messages. One particular message I got this week was, I just want to mention it, okay, and it went something along like this. Another Friday of no news. It's the only thing I look forward to. Over 2,000 a week for all, okay, again, but keep up your commission work, Phil. I did try and answer you. This came in via Facebook by an unknown user, so you obviously got it all blocked up. But I did strike a chord, and I did write you a nice message back, but unfortunately, because your privacy setting does not accept incoming messages, I couldn't get it to you. So I'm taking this point to sort of mention it. Couple of things. Obviously, it did go up last week. It was just a little bit late. Because it was an hour and a quarter news show and my internet connection still hasn't been connected, we're still waiting for it to be done by BT. It did take over 2 days to upload. It took 49 hours to upload that particular video, because it obviously is in full HD and everything else. So it didn't actually go up until 4 o'clock in the morning on the Saturday morning. So there was a news show, first of all. Secondly, commission work. That one for the Red Arrows I was not paid for at all. It was a complete freebie. I did it for nothing. So I worked basically for a week for nothing at all. So it's not like I made money out of that and took away. The other thing as well is the news shows tend to be the sort of icing on the cake. I enjoy doing them. You guys obviously love watching them and everything else like that. But the videos which I do for the full builds and that go up every week, and this week you've got 2. So we've got the first part of the Tornado, you've got the last part of the actual Star Destroyer going up there as well. So the members will get those videos, plus the fact I tend to do little clips, tips and tricks, as you know, that go up that you don't see on the news show anyway, because they go straight into the forum or straight to the main site where non-members you'd never know about them. So that is the point to it. The other thing is time. I've only got so much time to be able to do all of this, okay? So, you know, the news show is at the end of the list, okay? So if something gets chopped, it will be the news show, unfortunately. But I do it, I enjoy doing it, that's why it's free for everybody to watch, versus obviously the rest of the site is locked down, so you have to be a member to see it. But I did mention that one, and I can't even know your name or whatever it was. It's just unfortunately, as I say, you got it locked down. I couldn't see it. It just came through as a Facebook user. But I did want to mention that one. Anyway, so on that talk, the red arrows, obviously that was finished off last week. I get asked, I wouldn't say lots, but quite a bit, and it pops up in the forum quite a bit as well, about when you sell models, for you guys who flog your models and everything else, about sending them and how do you send them and different ways. So what we got now is the last part of the red arrows video where we have a look, see how they turned out and how I actually ship them. Okay, and there we go, there's the Hawks done. So if I talk you through exactly what we've done, as you can see, this is basically had 2 coats of clear, Johnson's Clear, the new milky stuff to be honest, which is this one. Okay, secret with this stuff, okay, first of all is overcoating. First coat goes down, quite thin, quite misty, everything else like that. Pop that one down, and then literally within around about 10 minutes, before it's totally gone off, put the second coat on quite wet, and then stand it on its edge and go around and just catch any drips. Now I'm quite lucky on this one, I haven't got any, but just watch them for things like down here on the centres and everything else like that. But as you can see, those little touch-in marks we've had to do, yes, they're not perfect. Yes, you could, if you wanted to, spend a lot more time and do them a lot better. And yes, I should have thought about it, but we didn't. But you might be able to see we've got the little black aerials on, we've got the pitot tube on the front, we've got the glass work on. Canopy unmasked and done. As you can see, taking the time with that canopy has really paid off. It's given us exactly what we wanted. The bar, this stripe in at the top, as you can see, literally that is just a little bit of buff I used, which was XF57, masked it over after it's completely unmasked and just sprayed that in. But as you can see, we've got no problem with that at all. Really happy with how that's turned out. A few little things, I've got a little bit of film you might be able to see on the back here. So if you take a sanding stick, okay, just give it a rub upward, just one direction, and then just give it a gentle sand upwards. That takes care of that, but remember, always do it when it's dry. We've got it on the tail, tail's clear I think, but same thing with the tail. And that's how I cut decals off, because if you try and do it with a knife they could tear and give you a little bit of trouble. But as you can see, we've got our little pilot figure in there. He's looking really, really nice. And we've got that masking work, as you can see, came along and worked a treat. Okay, and taken down. Just remember, when you're unmasking, use a blade, go round it all first and then peel it off. Otherwise you end up taking bits of paint with you and everything else. But I'm really happy how these little guys turned out. And again, kudos to Airfix, because it's a lovely little kit, goes together really, really well with no real fit issues or anything else like that. Tiny little bits of filler on this, but nothing major you'd actually harp on about. The only thing is, as I say, the decals, they're a little bit hit and miss about getting them on there, but it looks the part. The only thing I haven't done is put the numbers on, purely because obviously we've lost some in the past and things like that, and the numbering is a little bit out of date, so I've decided not to number them, and we just do them like that. So next thing, all we've got to do is try and get them there. So let's have a look at packaging. Okay, so one of the big things I get asked a lot is about how do you send models through the post. Now obviously I did commissions for 15 years, and to be honest, I would say probably 99% of them got there no problem at all. The rest of the 1% normally were pretty messed up, okay? So it does tend to be a little bit hit or miss if they're going to make them there or not. Now, I know there's loads of things on the internet where you can go along and see where people have done videos and they've shown you exactly how they send their models and everything else, and I think everybody has their certain techniques to it. Mine is brought out of cheapness, doing it the cheapest way possible, but certainly I think works pretty well safe. Now, what I used to use was fish boxes, which are the polystyrene cube boxes. The great thing about that is weight. It saves weight on shipping and everything else. Then a few years ago in the UK, they brought in what we call volumetric weight, where it doesn't matter really what the weight is, it's size that's more the problem. So consequently, that put pay to that. So, you know, now you can just use normal, strong cardboard boxes. So basically, the way I tend to do my models, I work on the principle that shock and obviously being thrown is what's going to kill your model. You're never going to stop it being trodden on, and to be honest, I did lose a very expensive commission that I did of a MiG many years ago, and literally the box came to me and it had a footprint on it where some idiot had actually trodden on it and completely smashed 600 quid worth of commission. and all the rest of it. So quite frankly, you know, if it's going to happen, you're never going to stop it, but certainly we can try and prevent a lot of normal day-to-day things, such as I say, shock damage, which is the thing that's going to smash your model. Now, first of all, if you're sending a model to someone who's got a rough idea what they're doing, you can disassemble it first, or not even build it fully assembled, which is something that I do if I can get away with it a lot. Obviously, if you've got a guy who's you know, doesn't know what he's doing, he's not a modeler, he's going to want a finished model at the end of the day that he takes out of the box and he puts it straight on the shelf. If you can, say to the guy, look, I can guarantee it's going to get there in pretty much one bit if you can put the wheels on yourself, if you can put the gear on, the flaps on, anything that's likely to come off, i.e. weapons and stuff like that. That way you're limiting the amount of damage actually going through the post system. Normally most guys will know roughly what they're doing, a couple of drops of super glue, even give them a bottle of super glue or something else like that to literally pop those little bits on. And with Skype and stuff like that, you can obviously talk your client, or you know, whoever it's for, a friend, exactly how to do it, and you know, basically they won't have a problem with it. Our case here, what we've got down here is the 10 red arrows, which have got to go. They're only going to the UK, so it's not a problem, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to send them. Now, I work on the principle of a very strong outer box, so if you can, get a double-walled one. This actually is a single-walled one. When we say that, what we're talking about is how many layers of this it's got. This is what we call a single. If it's got 2 lots of corrugated in there, that's a double-walled. Obviously, it's a lot stronger, prevents impacts and all the rest of it. Okay, that's my outer one. Then I have an inner box with the model in itself. So in our case, I've got a box like this, okay, and in here we have our hawk, which sits in there, and it's in there, and it doesn't move around. All right. Okay, the tail is a little bit higher on one side, so hence I've got it like this, but generally there's no movement in there. I don't have to worry anything dropping off, and should be absolutely fine to drop it. So what I actually do is find a box that is roughly just a little bit bigger than the model itself, because you don't want to be packing it out with tons of stuff, because we're going to do that in a moment. Okay, I use this one as a sort of, you know, the display box almost. The guy's going to open up the model and see it. So I don't like using bubble wrap, if I'm honest. I tend to use normal sort of kitchen roll for this. This just stops it from scratching and moving around. So what we do, we just pop him in like this, and we're just going to pop him in, grab our hawk, okay, give it a final check, make sure you're happy with it and everything else like that. That we're going to do is sit him in. Now we know the pitot tube is a little bit fragile at the front. You could use a couple of bits of cardboard, Tamiya tape, or a very low tack tape, and you can go and put him in, but I'm quite happy to do it this way because they don't move once they're wedged in. I then put a protective one over the top because we have got some little aerials and things on there. So we want the minimum amount of stuff on here. Okay, this then sits in. This goes in, making sure the tail is tucked in. Okay, and it just sits in there, and then you give it a, there's no movement to that whatsoever, it's absolutely fine. If you cover your model in something, you know, literally, you run the risk of bits being knocked off, okay? So the less that's actually touching it, the better. Okay, so that's what I find. So you've got 2 of them in like that, and what I'm going to do now is just carry on, because I've got loads of little boxes here to do all 10 of them. Now obviously it's a little bit different for me because I've got 10 of them to go. Normally you might just have 1. So if you were doing something like this, as I say, we can move on to this next step. What I'm going to do now is just run through, and we're going to get the other 8 boxed up, ready to go, and I can show you the next step. Okay, so there we go, that's those all boxed up, all done. So what we can actually do, this is a top loading box, but you know when it goes on a van it's going to go that way, okay? So, you know, technically it's just that thing of, you know, when you pack your models, how it's going to be. If you've got something that's particularly weight effective, then you're going to have a problem. That's what you want to try and do, is do it so it doesn't matter if it's upside down, right way up, on its gear and anything else. That's why you want to take the weight all off of it, okay? So by doing it in like an envelope system and then into a box that can't move no matter where it is, then you don't have a problem. And just generally just giving it a shake test, you should be fine. If you can give it a shake and everything else like that, I can't imagine you're going to get any damage. And because we're double boxed, we're going to have a cushion effect in between. Now, as I said, not a fan of bubble wrap, but I am a massive fan of these. Now, these are your really cheap, scrunchy carrier bags. Don't use the thick polythene ones because they weigh a ton and it's going to cost you a fortune for shipping. Also, they don't work like a shock absorber. The reason I use these is because they are great. Because when you have a bag full like this, you can scrunch it down to nothing and you let go and they come back, okay? What that'll do is literally act like a mattress for your model to be on, okay? So when it's inside the box, it can maneuver around, and that's it. It's what we're trying to do. It's a bit like G-loading. I know we're sounding technical here for just sending some models through the post, but it's that thing. You're trying to actually decelerate the model. So if it does get thrown, okay, it's in this separate box. You've got this between it. When it hits something at the other end, it slows down generally, instead of it being a real knock and then things just flying off of it. And it's called, I call it the ping factor. And the ping factor is just all the bits when he opens it up have gone all over it, and that's all the stuff that have pinged off during transit. So what I tend to do, to start with, I've got some beads in here, or peanuts, depending where you are in the world, or pellets or whatever, but it's just this stuff, okay? So I'm just going to put in a lining down the bottom. Not much, just a cover to start with. Okay, just to take out that little shock factor of when it does get a boot, it has got something to go against instead of straight into your next box. Okay, so we've got a few down in there like that. All right, then we're going to take some of these, opening them up, making sure we've got plenty of air in there. We're just going to put them down there, and you can feel it. You've got a very nice shock absorber, okay? And then you come along with your models, and these fit very nicely, just like this. Now, because the tail is slightly sticking up on these boxes, you're going to have to rotate them around so they sort of interlock into each other. But what will happen is, because there is so many of these, it will act like a really tough wall. It doesn't matter if it gets a knock on the outside, because we've got so many of these, and these are such thick, good quality boxes. To be honest, they're my boxes I'll put the washing. That it will stop it from having an effect. So just generally, you're putting these in so they're in a separate order to the other. Okay, so we'll put that side, and then up that side. I was going to say, I'm thinking we've got one short here. Okay, goes in that side and that side. Then again, more of these. Just like so. And in fact, because I've got a load of these, we're just going to fill up the rest of it with here. Okay. And don't overpack it. One of the big mistakes people make is they come along and will overpack it. So it's all down there like that. Goes in, okay. And then, you hear it's got some movement. That's what we want. You want a tiny little bit of movement. But what it hasn't got, you've got a little bit on the side, but it's not too much. Okay, got a little bit of movement there. So it allows the box to slightly flex, which gives us our deceleration down in there, okay? And hopefully then that will make it there in one bit. Next piece of advice, if I can say it, is the courier you use. To be honest, everyone asks me, I use UPS. Never had a breakage with UPS in my life. Do it on next day. Pay that extra £5 or $10 and get it sent on a next day. That way it's not sitting in a warehouse being kicked in and knocked around. Also, don't send them on a weekend. So don't send them on a Friday, because they're going to sit around a warehouse and be knocked around and everything else like that over a weekend. I tend to always send them like on a Wednesday, so they'll be there for a Thursday, or a Monday for a Tuesday, and do it like that. You know, little things you can do is obviously pay for like before 12 o'clock as well. Again, that means it's not going to be knocking around for very long. It's the shortest possible time in transit. But if you just do it on a standard delivery of like 72 hour, obviously it's going to be chucked around and knocked about and go one place to the other before it gets to your client or your friends. So that will just stop it. Now, if you wanted to, and you've got something in here that, so that's just simply say I was going to send them something like the Star Destroyer, which is, you know, a lot of money. What would happen then is I would take another box like this, and we would repeat. So this one would then go into here, which this thing, I don't know if it will, it does, but actually goes into here. Okay, padding all around it again, then in like that, and I would send it again. And the sake of an extra lining like it could prevent your box being smashed out quite heavily. And to be honest, it's what I'm going to do with this one, because, you know, it's a freebie and all the rest of it, those red arrows ones, and the last thing I want them to do is get there. So I do it like this. Then obviously keywords, write glass on it. I know it sounds funny, and I know a lot of people say that means they'll kick it even harder. They won't. You know, couriers aren't like they used to be. I know we've all seen the YouTube horror videos of them throwing it around, but if you do put fragile, glass, you know, things like that on there, you'll be absolutely fine. You know, live animals, no, don't put live animals, but you know what I mean. So, you know, just let them know. Also, if you've, like me, one end is obviously full of chippings, the other end is packing, say open this end, and it'll just so your client doesn't open it up and it chippings everywhere and perhaps they just all fall out in a certain way. And I know obviously I've sent 10 there, but if you use those principles for sending 1 or 2, you should have no problem with it. But as I said, a good quality outer box, double walled, would be even better. Now we've double walled it with this one, I don't think we're going to have a problem with that at all. But certainly, you know, to guarantee it will get there, just take your time with it, making sure that the model is in like an envelope to start with, okay, very sort of nicely fitted and everything else. The trouble is when you start doing, I see guys and they use foam and they lock them in and all the rest of it, is great until it gets a kick, okay? And I've seen it because, you know, I've had the boxes back over various reasons and things like that, and I've seen them where, you know, there's footprints on boxes and punch marks and the corners are smashed in and stuff like that. They do get knocked around, you know, not everybody knows what's in there. And everything else. But there we go, that's about sending your, you know, model through the postal system or through the courier system as I do. Everything else, as I say, just take your time with it, think about how you're going to send it, try and limit the G-shock factor and the ping factor, and you should be absolutely fine. Still to come on Flory models, we've got this week's reviews where we've got the Trumpeter Westland Whirlwind and the Kitty Hawk Voodoo. We've got the SIG and the group build news. Plus we've got all your questions. Okay, so next up we've got the first review of the day. Okay, so we've got the new-ish, been out a little while, Westland Whirlwind. Okay, review time, something a little bit different. This is the 1/48 scale Trumpeter Westland Whirlwind, which Westlands are not very far from here, about an hour from here. And also the markings is very local aircraft to us as well, because the actual markings for this HE was through, was it 623 Squadron, which was actually based at Exeter as well. And Exeter is 5 minutes from here. So, you know, local bird all the way around, so quite a lot of interest for me in this particular kit. So what have we got? It's quite a small box. The kit price, you can see here, is £30. To be honest, this is Adam Raw's kit, who sent it to me to review. Thank you, Adam, for this one. So if it's a terrible kit, don't blame me. Okay, so what do we got? Okay, as I said, it's 1/48 scale, it's Trumpeter, it's in a nice box. We've got the little thing about the Westland Whirlwind, about the aircraft and everything else. It's one of those weirdo aircraft. When you look at it, you can see other things. So obviously it looks a little bit like a mini Mosquito, but also when you look at the tail, you can see the meteor in the tail and the way the development was going to try and get things very aerodynamic, as you can see, and things through this. As I say, I'm not brilliant on this particular aircraft because it wasn't actually in service that long. It got superseded by the Typhoon, I do believe, which basically, you know, was a better performer for the type of role that this was designed for. This was sort of a low altitude attack aircraft. Certainly the Typhoon, as we know, was supposed to be a fighter, and certainly didn't perform at high altitude, but what it did turn out to be was an amazing attack aircraft and low level fighter, and obviously superseded something like this very, very quickly. So, as I said, we've got a little bit on the box, the usual thing about it. We've got the kit number 02890 and a little bit on the back and everything else. And as I say, when you look at it, it's really, really weird because some of the things on it, they are, well, shall we say, a little bit funny ways of doing it. So, not many sprues in the box, so you don't get too much for your money. As always, we'll start with the actual bit. So we've got the usual thing from Trumpeter of what's coming up soon, which I do like to look at because you can always tell what they're up to. Let's see, here's the one we've got, some armament down there. Okay, not anything particularly impressive. Colour call out. So we'll start off in the instructions. So if we just drop this top camera down just a little bit so you can see. As I said, there's not many sprues to this. Don't know why they've quite got all this riveting detail showing in here, but never mind. Right, usual thing, starting off with the cockpit. You obviously got your floor control grip, the seat, no real detail in any of that by the looks of it from here. It's a decal for the instrument panel. Okay, sometimes you can get away with it, other times you can't. I think these type of aircraft are quite confined. It's not like an F-16 where everything's, you know, you can look into it. So you can get away with this one. We've got the system of putting in a cockpit tub, so we've got side walls going in, which tends to give you a little bit more detail. The actual engine areas, those nacelles on there, the gear going in. I'm just looking at it. Looks like you're going to have to put the undercarriage gear in now. You can't put it in later, which is a bit of a pain, because if you want to paint it as a separate, if it's separate colour, you're going to have to mask up. The only thing you might be able to do is not put in the rear part here, okay? So don't put this in. I'm thinking you put that in, fold it back, paint it all up, fold it up, mask it over, job done. And then once it's finished, you can then pull this up, this one with the undercarriage on it, bend it up, okay? You can put the wheel and everything in afterwards, and then you can just put this bracing thing back in the back there. I don't think that would be a problem doing it that way, and it'll save a lot of messing around. As I said, a few little details going in there. You've got the exhausts, have got covers on them, as you can imagine, so pretty straightforward. There's not a lot to this, as you can tell. We're scooting through it rather rapidly. So cockpit tub goes in, and then being the tail wheel, we don't have to worry about obviously being a tail sitter, because it is anyway, so you don't need any nose weight. You've got the medium grey green going in there. It's pretty straightforward. The guns going in. This front windscreen, which looks like it's off of something like a Hurricane, everything's very aerodynamic apart from the windscreen. But then so is the early Meteors as well. So that's going in. Tailplane's going in at the top there. These big, long, old gangly wings that they have going in. Radiators or cooling ducts going in at the front, and then it just clips in the bottom. If it was all so simple, we'd be okay. Okay. Those engine and gear compartments going in, pretty straightforward. Might need a little bit of filler to go down there. It'd be interesting to see how good that fit is. Quite a weirdo way of the bracing for the sway braces, clipped to a unit which then clips on. Gear doors going on, as you'd imagine, and then that's it, I should think, isn't it? So yeah, spinners going on, props on, everything else. Talk about a quick build. It'd be one of those nice weekend builds. If you want to do an aircraft and just get it done, built, painted in a weekend, this is probably the one for you. Okay, colour call out. So we've got the usual thing. It's got the Hobby Boss colours all the way through. A couple of gaps for Vallejo, a couple of gaps for Model Master, a couple of gaps in Tamir, as we know, and Humble. So it's amazing how the the gun stuff always is in. Okay, but there we go. As you can see, it has got very, very funny windscreen. It's so, everything else is so sleek on this, apart from the windscreen. It's might as well like be a bus. But as I said, it's a local bird to me because HE is in fact 623 Squadron, which is just up the road from me. So it's a real local bird before they moved on. Okay, so you've got it in the early colours, obviously the brown over green, and then coming into the later one, which is the grey over green with the underside as well. So nice little couple of colours down there. It'd be interesting if I can find out a little bit more about the actual squadron, the aircraft in particular, from my local guys around here who know quite a bit about Exeter Airport. Exeter Airport, getting totally off track, but it won't take long to review this. My local one, as I said, we don't have many airfields that are still going down here. There's loads of them around. This place is completely dotted with them that have all got farms on them now and everything else. But it was very famous because a lot of the D-Day paratroopers took off from this area. Not to mention all the ships and everything else go around with it. So let's start off with the cockpit. So my knife, where is my knife? Knife is stuck in a block. Okay, so let's have a look to see what we've got in here. I'm sure Adam won't mind us having a good old nosy. Okay, looking at the parts, first thing it grabs you is you've got very nice recessed panel lining, lots of riveting as we'd imagine in this day and age, and everything else that goes through with this. We just drop in some of these cameras in a little bit closer because, as I said, these sprues aren't the biggest on the planet. Okay, but as you can see, or I hope you can see, very nice tooling on this, no sign of flash. We've got no ejector pin marks anywhere that's a massive problem. So what we've got in here, we've got the inside detail, as we were talking about for the cockpits. I'm not sure what it's all supposed to be, but I'm sure people in the know would be. Some nice detail up here on the roof area and everything else going in. As I said, a little bit of flash just there, which is unusual, but very easily get rid of with your nail normally. There we go. So anyway, as you can see on the top, we've got it's a recessed instrument panel, but you know, it's one of those things. It's going to have a decal over it, plenty of softener, melt that git in there, and then you can come along with something like my favourite, which is crystal clear, but a couple of drops of clear gloss in there just to give you the gloss effect, and it gives you everything you need. Nice detail on the floor, as you can see as well on that one, but hopefully you can pick up some of this riveting detail. Hopefully one of the cameras will get it. It's not too bad at all, actually. Quite impressed with that. That's very nice. As I said, it's a small aircraft, but small and beautifully formed, I think they would call it. So anyway, here we go in with the rest of it. So we've got the wheels, so they're rounded wheels, as in no weight on wheels, as you can see down the bottom here. This is the inside of the actual gear, the top of the gear if you like, so we've got one each side because it's like a mirror over here. Usual thing, we've got nice touch, you've got different size holes, so you're not going to get the one around the wrong way because there's probably slight differences in the exhausts coming out as they go in. These are these sections going in, so I'm wondering, see look, there's only a little tiny tab down there, you can poke them in afterwards. So there you go, get the gear, put it in, fold it back in there, mask it up, job done. There's red on this, there's actually red something on there. I'm hoping it's release agent, not dry blood. Okay. Inside of the doors, very nice touch because we've got no sign of an ejector pin mark in any of those at all. In fact, you've got no ejector pin marks inside these either where it's going to matter. Okay, we've got these sway braces. All right, a little bit clunky. Photo etch would be nice on something else like that, but I'm sure the aftermarket boys will be along in their time to do this. And as I said, you've even got a little bit of riveting detail up here on the bulkheads and on the rear plates as well as you go through. So all in all, very nice, very nicely detailed. Now, one of the things that the Whirlwind, you know when you've seen one, is its wingspan, because as you can see, I have to move the camera out again now, it's quite a big wingspan. As you can see, it's a lot longer than the fuselage. So there's your fuselage, there's your wingspan. So it's almost like a glider, this thing. Okay, so looking down on it, what have you got? Again, very nice recessed panel lining. It's got a little bit of texture to this. Obviously, you're going to be doing it in combat, but if you're doing glosses and stuff like that, it's a bit of a pain when it's like this. The riveting all seems to be very, very crisp. All the panel lining goes the entire distance. No problem with that at all. Obviously, no separate control surfaces on this, so you've got no sort of ailerons and flaps and that which you can deploy, which would have been nice of something of this scale. And then we've got here, now I don't know, not knowing this aircraft, as I said, it's very hard to say about it, but certainly what we've got down here is raised areas which I tend to think probably blend into the wing. It's just why there's no panel line that sort of carries them round or anything else like that, and I can't tell if that's a sink mark at the front. I don't know which camera might be better with these, but you see these guys here, these little plates here, obviously raised at the rear, flush at the front. I'm sure they're supposed to be like that. It's just that I would have thought you would have had something running around on the metal join of some reason for that. But generally, as I said, you don't have to worry about anything on the inside. Very nice and pushed in ejector pin marks everywhere, so you're not going to have any problems with fit. Some nice locating tabs as well to make sure everything goes. And also, it's quite a nice touch, you've actually got blocks for where these go in, because they're square. Instead of them just being a couple of holes for it to just push into, they're actually blocks so you can't push in too far. So, nice little touch. Okay, props and spinners. Okay, no sign of flash on the props whatsoever. Okay, very nicely done. Usual thing, a couple of swipes with the sanding stick will take care of those, but they are very thin on the end, so just be careful how you do that, because you don't want to actually take a couple of scale inches off the end. Unfortunately, the guns are a bit pants for something that's on here. In fact, should it actually be like that? It's a tiny one. So obviously that's a little something else, but the guns we've got down here and here, as I said, some nice aftermarket ones. I'm sure somebody must do something that fits in there. We've got these exhausts we were talking about with, see the actual locating pins, very small on these, very big on these. They're different ones, so you can't get them around the wrong way. And then usually the nose is a little bit boring for the guns to go in. I thought maybe some riveting around that, something else. But as I said, little details you can add yourself, which would be a nice touch. And these little lumps and bumps down the bottom. Again, no sign of flash anywhere whatsoever. It's quite a nice touch on any of the parts. Okay, into the get into these clear parts. This is where I need a new cutting mat. I need a reviewing cutting mat instead of using this one because it's a little bit horrible. So we've got some very nice raised detail for the panels running on this. The great thing about when they're raised is obviously you can easily mask up, because either you can follow them or you can just blanket the entire thing and cut it and your job done. So it's, you know, it just makes it easier for masking. This is that front windscreen we were talking about, which is like a bus front. Okay, so certainly seems to be good. We've got very good clarity head on. Pretty good, you can see it through here, no problem with that at all. But I must admit, I haven't had any problem with Trumpeter clear parts for a while now. You don't get any of the webbing effect or anything else we've spoken about in the past with said other manufacturers who tend to, let's just say, do it the cheaper way to manufacturing clear parts. So at least Trumpeter spend a little bit of money there to put them right. So we have down here the decals. Just have a look in these. Again, little lovely touch. Some people put a staple through them, which bugs the arse off me completely. This is what I was talking about. It's nice because it stops it moving around and it's doing its job of actually protecting the decal and stopping anything scratching them, sticking to them or anything else. So it's a nice little touch having those on there. Unfortunately, the quality of the decals does tend to let these things down. So the usual thing, as you can probably see, they are very, very thick. They're like sellotape thickness. So you know, you're going to need your softeners and your various things to get these down. They are extremely glossy as well, so you're going to need to mat these down. A couple little techniques we've spoken about before. We're going to show you a lot of these techniques in the next couple of months here on Flory Models, about weathering down techniques. So overcoating techniques, rubbing down techniques like we did on the Intruder. Take a sanding sponge to them and sand them flat, and then overcoat them, and washes and so forth and so on. So there's lots of things there, but they all seem to be all nicely in register. They're just a little bit thick, and I'm not too sure about the red either. But there you go. Seems very nice. No complaints at all. So there we go. What can you say? Okay, a bit expensive. Don't get a lot of plastic in here for your money. But that said, you know, it's something a little bit different. None of the other manufacturers, as I know, does a 148 Westland Whirlwind. So if you want to do one, probably your only option in this scale. Does seem to be very nicely done. Lots of riveting detail, so it'll take washes. And obviously, being your sort of standard late war camos, you can do lots of things with them. Obviously, fading that down, weathering it, and little chipping effects and things like that. So there we go, the Trumpeter 148 Westland Whirlwind. Okay, so seems to be a great little kit. All right, not cheap, you know, as I say, this one's £30. You don't get a lot of plastic for £30. When you think of it like the Revell Tornado, you get a lot of plastic for £20. But it does look very nice. Can't see any problems with it. And I think, you know, again, a little bit of aftermarket stuff would really make a fantastic kit from that. And as I say, local interest for me because it was based 10 minutes from here. Absolutely lovely. So there we go. Next up, we have the Kitty Hawk Voodoo, which you're not going to want to miss this one. Okay, review time. What do we got? Okay, the Kitty Hawk 148 scale F101 Voodoo. Now, we've been after a decent Voodoo in the hobby world now for a long time. Only option you have is the monogram one, which is raised panel lines, which, don't get me wrong, has one of the finest cockpit details I've seen on a model in a long time. It's beautifully done, especially when you think how old that kit is. It's a very old kit, but we wanted something, a nice up-to-date modern tooling and things like that. Kitty Hawk, okay, doesn't have the best rap sheet in the world, let's face it. We've seen some of their kits and they've been truly horrible, so it'll be interesting to see what we've got in here. So, first thing that jumps out of you is the way that obviously detail and scale have thrown their weight behind this one a little bit and provided all the sort of references and things like that. And if anybody's then going to make it right, it should be them, because they do know their stuff. You can find them on the internet. As I say, I have used their books. To be honest, I used one of their books to do the Intruder, which gave me that great insight about putting the engine on the weapons pylon as if it's in maintenance. I found all the reference shots from them from Detail in Scale, so make sure you go and check them out. They're on Facebook, they're everywhere, so go for your life. So, usual thing, lovely box art. Very nice picture, the Voodoo. Great thing about the Voodoo was it's all that beautiful bare metal work that was very sort of renaissance of the sort of 60s and 70s of the way of doing it. It says it comes with some photo etch. So looking around on the box, we've got another beautiful scheme there, which is obviously the one off the front, and we've got on the tail A couple of other ones that come in, so as you can see, more fantastic schemes. And back round to the front. So our kit number for this one, before we sort of scoot off somewhere, is, he says, hurriedly trying to find it, is KH80115. Not the strongest box in the world, but perfectly adequate. Okay, first thing that jumps out at you, and I've got to be honest with this one, I have looked at this before. We had a Geek Meet. This is one of our members' models who's allowing me to review it. And as I said, at the time it looked a bit shocking, and it still doesn't fail me now. The colour of this plastic, it just looks like it's something from the 70s. Separate bagged to a point, they do tend to be all in. So what we'll do is, well, first of all, we're going to go through the old instructions. So if we just look at these first, because these are quite lovely. Okay, first up we have the instructions. Beautiful colour booklet with a paper insert, which is always a bit funny, but there we go. So, sprue call out. We got to imagine they're going to do a few different versions of this, as we've seen with other Kitty Hawk. They brought out other versions of the one there's doing. So certainly I imagine there's going to be a two-seater coming along in the near future as well. So, usual thing, you got your call outs. As I said, we know we've got some photo etch, we've got some lovely decals I've had a glimpse of already, and as you can see from these markings, you get absolutely beautiful markings to do them in. Okay, so you can see them there, and you can see these here. So you have got some lovely options with some of the best markings I've seen on an aircraft in a very, very long time. So straight into it. Okay, usual thing, we've got the cockpit, the seats, and everything going in. We've got photo etch, which is quite nice, or decals, or both, I suppose you could do, to put them down as well. So you've got plenty of options there. Looks like we've got a nice wheel well, which is very reminiscent of the old days where we used to glue them to the bottom of things, F-14 Tomcats and that. Gear going together, but obviously you'd probably do that last. Front cockpit, as we know, we've got other versions of this coming down the line, so it's to be expected. It's going to be in lots of bits, this, to do all the different versions. We've got the refueling probe, which you can put in, again, another lovely touch as well to put that on the front. Some nice detail around the gear and everything else. Cockpit going in now, again, it's photo etch and or decal as well. You can put that in there. And then you've got options as well for doing various things, but as I said, luckily it looks like you can do them all afterwards and things. As I say, the refueling probe, I don't know if you'd have it up, it doesn't improve the looks of the aircraft. Single seat version, so obviously just got the front mid cockpit going through there, displayed open or closed, personal choice. The gun vents, if you like, they go on separate as well. A little bit funny for reasons for doing that. We'll look at this in a moment to see how this goes in, obviously the intakes, to see how sort of seamless they'll be and the ways those are going to go in. Again, in the early jet era, they tended to have veins and things going across, so seamless intakes aren't as important as you might find on something modern like an F-16 where you can just see it straight away. Okay, back end of the fuselage going in, we've got this sort of clamshell effect like the Phantoms have. Some nice detail work looks like around the actual engines themselves. Okay, so we've got those going on, then your gear, then your wings. Quite nice, so we've actually got positionable control surfaces on these ones, so that's quite nice. Okay, that's all going in, and then obviously you've got your flaps, again, positionable up or down. Your gear going in. Some vent panels going in there if you wanted to put them in either way. The tail then sits on top of the clamshell, very sort of Phantom-esque of the way of doing it. Okay, and then obviously the control surfaces all going in there, which don't look like they're positionable to a point because they've got slats instead of going in. Front fuselage going in quite late, which means it'll be a pain to do all your filler work and everything else around without destroying it if it's not a good fit. But as I said, this is that very modular way of doing it. So you've got a separate tail, really, separate midsection, separate front, and then a complete nose on it as well. So, you know, depending on how it goes. One thing I love about the Voodoo is the way that the fuel tanks both sit underneath. So that's a very nice touch. And we've already looked at those as well. So you also get, which I won't get out of the bag, but a beautiful decal sheet, as you can see. We've also got another one down here for the walkways. It looks like, okay, they're crude, but again, how much are you really going to see down in there? Instrument panel looks okay, side panels look very generic, if you ask me, but certainly I don't think anything out of the way. Photo etch part seems to be the business, so we've got some engine work down in there, and as I said, don't know why you'd have a photo etch and a clear like that, but at least they mirror, so you could put one on top of the other to give you that little bit of texture to them. but you're not going to get much texture from photo etch. It's, I don't know, can't see really the point of that one. Okay, the stuff. Now, this particular kit was a pre-release kit that went to one of our members who's a reviewer for magazines and things like that. He's lent it to me. So we can't say that these faults are going to be with everybody's kit, but I do know they are for sale now. They're in the UK, so if you have got a problem with the kit, let me know and I'll tell the world, because obviously there may be a problem with this, because we have got a few little problems. Now, the first one straight off the bat. The forward front end section, you may notice down here we've got it looks like a mold burn rather than anything else. The other thing as well, this thing is covered in ejector released film, which is like a silicone spray they spray into the mold. But this actually looks like it's been burnt with something and has got a melt mark just down here in the front. Now, okay, I'm being picky because put the front end, tiny bit of filler, it's no bigger job than any other on, you know, most kits. It's just a bit annoying when you find it on your part. But also, has it bent the actual shape of it? It doesn't look like it has, but certainly we don't have it on this side and we have it here, so it's not supposed to be there. Cockpit is non-existent of any detail, but as I said, we've got photo etch and also you've got your decals to put down there, but it's a little bit thing off. The clamshell at the rear is a little bit soft. I'd like it to be slightly sharper detail with these veins where they overlap each other down there. But generally, as you said, it's just, it has that Matchbox 1970s feel to it. I know it sounds horrible, but that's how it actually feels. Okay, so moving on. Things we can say about it: beautiful recessed panel lining, extremely fine and sharp. Okay, the only thing is, again, it's textured. The mold hasn't been polished. Okay, again, it's not a problem unless you're doing a metal finish, which we are. So really, that means you've got to heavily gloss this before you can come near it with your metallizer paints, or you're going to have to polish the plastic. So be warned. Okay, so just looking around at the rest of the parts, see, we've got quite nice detail. It's just not as, I don't know, not as crisp as I'd like to have seen it. Okay, and certainly they've never polished the mold on the other side, because you've actually got the tooling marking from the drill bits coming out. We've got plenty of flash over absolutely everything down the back here. We've got the same thing again, where we've got these half ejector pin marks sticking up. Some of the parts have taken quite a brutal whack. You can see some whiting down on here. So it's just the way obviously they're being laid out in the sprues, so some of them may need bending back. It's just that the way they've been pinged out the mold, we've got these white marks everywhere where they've actually stressed to get them actually out of the mold. That one's okay. Okay, down in here we've got the engine detail, which we had high hopes for. Unfortunately, it's a little bit soft for my liking. You have got riveting detail in there, but it is so fine I don't think you're actually going to see it. Okay, the wheels, again, where it's been stamped, you've got stress marks right in the middle of them all. Okay, hubs are obviously a separate fit because they're on a separate part. Okay, and the detail inside the engines, okay, is adequate, and we don't have any ejector pin marks at all for these intake areas, vents. That's pretty nice, that's very good. This detail, we've got these inlets for air vents going into the system like this. It's all very well, but they are so shallow and non-existent, I can't see the point of them being a separate part. You might as well just left them on the fuselage. If you had them deep with some detail, would have been lovely, but unfortunately not with that one. Interior panel combing is very crude. Okay. Unfortunately, all the doors have got ejector pin marks in them as well, so you're going to have to clean them up, which is a bit of a pain. Okay, let's move on. Again, you know, you can see this. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't affect anything. It's just, you know, there's the ejector pin to get it out. All of these models feel like they're dripping in release film. So why it took that much pressure to get it out is beyond me, and it's not just one, it's on both. Okay, so as you can see, but again, you've got quite nasty where somebody's tried to get rid of them, the ejector pin marks, but they are very raised, so you're going to have to get rid of those. And again, we've got them here, okay, and back down here where you can see we've got these raised ejector pins which need to come out. before you can touch it. But we do have some very nice detail. I'm trying to find the positives here, but we have got some very nice detail actually in these areas, which obviously quite nice. And we've got internal detail for the actual wheel wells themselves. And again, if you can see it, I don't know how well the camera will pick it up, but certainly you've got beautiful riveting detail of 1,000,000 rivets on these tail plates, which are absolutely fantastically done because they're all identical. And they all look to be absolutely the same depth and everything else, so no problem. But the wing is covered in it as well, so I think if you were to polish it, as long as you didn't fill all this detail up, you would have a fantastic looking model. Now, okay, here's our little nose cone, no problem with that at all. Okay, so he's okay, we just keep that separate. But we do have, again, we're looking here and here, the ejector pins, and when I hold this up to the light, I don't know how well you guys will see it, but I can see straight through that. That is very, very clear. It's just like daylight looking through daylight. So these ejector pin marks are so close to going right the way through that I feel, and I could be wrong, but again, let me know if you have, they could have gone through. I can imagine it as like some of them, they've actually gone through. So extremely close on that one. And then I just put the nose in there so we just know it's out of that bag. Okay, right, into the bigger bits. Okay, so we know it's very modular, so it's going to be a right pain to get these together, but we have got some nice, if it fits, some nice details around here, which would be great because it will enable it to lock on positively. Again, we've got white stress marks where it looks like it had a hard time getting out of the mould around there. We've got some little sink marks around on this one as well, and when we talk about sink marks, massive sink marks. Now, sink marks, this sounds horrible because it sounds like I'm pulling this kit apart. I'm really not, because I was very excited about this kit and I would have gone out and bought one in a heartbeat. But it looks like a lot of schoolboy errors. It looks like the ejector pins are pushing too hard to get this thing out of the mould, and one of those reasons could be is that it's still too hot. I am by no means whatsoever an engineering expert on injection moulding and releasing of them and everything else, but what I do know is you do get sink marks like these guys that you can probably see here happens when they come out of the mould and it's still hot, okay, and then what happens is as it cools down it falls in, because what it is, it's actually melting into the gaps on the other side, and that's why you get this sort of falling down. So sometimes if you look at it, you get ejector pin marks. It's not those, it's locating tabs, and they sink into them. It's where they're hollow on the inside and it's allowing it to sag, and it's purely because they're coming out of the press so fast, the mould, that they're still hot, and it may be that they're sticking, they're not having time to cool, and that's why they're having trouble coming out of the mould. So it may be just a case of, guys, slow it down, let it out, okay? But as you said, it's a pain. It's not a problem to fill that and do it. It's just a pain that you have to do it, especially when you are paying a lot of money for a kit like this. But anyway, we'll move on. Okay, so very nice underside detail. Again, stress marks on it, but I'm going to give up just talking about them now. Okay, nice detail all the way round. Riveting detail is all very nice on all these areas, and as you can see, pretty good. We've got the engine detail, as you can see here, and on the other side, although, you know, I hate to say it, we've got ejector pins. Release agent in all of these, and there's ejector pin dumps in them all. Alright, so that's a bit of a pain. Okay, and then we've got here, I presume this is the area to the rear. We've got those all very nicely done. I hate it when the kits don't perform as you think, because it makes you so disappointed. Okay, so the big important things. I hope there wasn't supposed to be cut the things on these tabs. If no, they've gone. Okay, right. Ooh. Okay, we've got to look at it. Horrible, horrible. We got ejector pin marks in those intakes, which I know, you know, you don't see them now, but unfortunately you've got them. We've got huge ejector pins down here as well. If you want to keep going on about it, we've got big ejector pin marks in these missiles and everything else down in there, which is a bit of a problem. There's none on the bombs, there's none on the fuel tanks, but they're all recessed detail on the tanks and everything else. Looking down at the smaller parts, they all seem to be very nicely crisply moulded. See, I can find something good to say about it. Okay, and everything else, as you can see, apart from I've got the odd ejector pin thing. Look, I'm wondering if look, I was only joking when I said I hope there's nothing supposed to be there. That's why you check your bags, guys, to make sure. But I've got these two bits here, which I know now, because, you know, power of observation, should go on these. Now, I don't know if they're anything important, but they certainly are now. Seeing this isn't my kit, what I'm going to do is we are just going to pop them 1 and 2. We're going to fold. Just because I've done this a million times myself, it's nothing more annoying. And what I'm going to do, because it's not my kit, is just going to stick it to here. Okay, so what you do, you pop your parts in like this. You've got them on here. You can see through the tape what it is, and obviously I've put them next to the tanks, so hopefully John will know those go on there if he needs them. But that's the thing, never get your bag, open it up, screw it up, bung it in the bin, because the amount of times I've been through the rubbish on bin night looking for a part and it's always been in there, because what happens is they fall off, they go to the corners of the bags, you don't know about them, and then, you know, trust me, 3 months down the line when you're building it and you've got to that tiny little area you need, nothing worse. So there we go. Yeah, okay, glass work. Come on, this has got to be good. We can't have anything wrong with the glass work. It should be perfect. Close. Okay, it's not perfect. It's really, really annoying now, because I had such high hopes for this kit. What we've actually got is it looks like a frosting around all the edges of the thing. So what that actually means is it's horrible to look through. Not only does it look like it's got frost, you know, I don't know how well the cameras are going to pick this up. I'll try and bring them both in as tight as I can. Okay, but I'm really not sure, because I've never tried anything this close, but you may be able to see it's like a frosty coat under here. If I put something under it which will show some colour. I'm hoping you see it's all fuzzy down the bottom, and when you look at it you can actually see a sort of, it's not cracked or anything, it's just obviously the way it's been moulded. I think it's come out of the mould too quick. Generally the front one, as you can see, we've got no problem with that at all, that is crystal clear, and the rear one, as you can see, alright, there's a bit of wobble, alright, but nothing massively over the top, and it's good all the way around. It's just this front one is a bit horrible. And as you can see, I don't know how well you can actually see this middle glass window here, if I do it from the underside, it's just really, really fuzzy. So you're going to have to polish that out, but this here is never going to polish out. But it's only down this edge. Again, it's not a problem, it's just really, really annoying when you spend 60 quid on a kit and then you find out that it's not what you was hoping for. And down the bottom, look, we can come up with something positive. Detailing scale, there we go. As I said, love their books. Intruder, you would have seen us did that. We also used it for the Corsair build as well back in the day, so that's quite a long time ago. But as I said, have a look out for these guys, because they really do know what they're doing. And for modelers' references, they are absolutely fantastic. Go out and buy one. Oh, okay. A lot of what I've said has been my personal disappointment, shall we say, purely because I had such high hopes for this. Kitty Hawk are a relatively new company, okay, which I know is no excuse when you're charging people £60–70 for a kit. But they're a new company and they are getting better, and everybody had to start somewhere. You know, when you look at Kinetic's early stuff, that was horrible as well. So, you know, they're a relatively new company into the market. They're tackling very, very technical subjects, like a Voodoo especially, but some of their other builds certainly, you know, there has been, you know, various issues with them, shall we say, especially fit issues, and some of their technical call-outs and things like that seem to be a little bit misplaced from my point of view. I haven't built any of their kits purely because I've heard all the horror stories with them, so I tend to think not. Okay, and you know, as we sit here now, I've got a thing going on, there's a poll on the forum and everything, and we're talking about what kits you'd like me to see. And as you've known, you've seen my stash, everyone, I do have their kits here, and I have paid my own money for them. It's not like I'm giving these kits for nothing. And I have got the F-35s there, I have got the Jaguars and everything else, because I thought, brilliant, fantastic. Then I hear all the horror stories for them, and I think, right. And normally I am not put off at all by horror stories, because I've heard horror stories on kits I've never had a problem with. Wing Nut Wings triplane I did, I heard it didn't go together. I never had a problem. It went together, no problem at all. I've had other people and they've said, oh, that doesn't fit. I've had no fit issues with a particular kit at all, first nor last with it, and they've been a dream build, no problem at all. Other people have been thought, they've bunged them in the bin and chucked them all away. This kit will go together, but you've got to make a few repairs to it, okay? And you're going to have to spend a little bit of time cleaning up, getting rid of ejector pin marks, filling in where mismolds and things like that. And it's just that thing, it annoys me that companies will quite happily take your money when technically the product isn't fit. But, and this is my little get out clause for bashing this kit, this is technically a pre-run kit. It may be just mine is like it, okay? As I said, it's not mine, it's John's. John was sent it before it was released. So it is obviously one of the early kits that came out rather than perhaps what you guys have got at home now. So before anyone makes a judgment on this, I think we need to get a little bit of feedback from you guys. So have a look at your Voodoo kits for you guys that have gotten them. Let me know if they're okay. If they're not the same, then I'll come back and we'll really give them hell over it. So there we go, that is the Voodoo. Very disappointed, if we're honest, but it is still a Voodoo and it has got recessed panel lines and it probably goes together. No, it probably doesn't actually go together as easy as the monogram one. So you might want to spend your time probably rescribing the monogram one and it'll probably still be a quicker build. Technically, if this was my kit, I would now take it outside and we could blow it up, but it's not. Damn. Yeah, I have to say I am very, very disappointed with the kit. I think I've covered it pretty much, my disappointment in the actual video build there. Need your feedback, I suppose, at the end of the day. Tell me if your kit is like it, and then next week's show I will then either love this kit because it's all been fixed and nobody else has got a problem with it, or if you've got problems with it, then I will slate it. As I said, I wanted to do a Voodoo because of this brilliant metal work and everything else on there, absolutely stunning looking ones. And obviously you've got other variants that are going to come along, obviously the Canadian ones, things like that, all in beautiful markings. And as I say, I love this era of Jet. It's just that I'm so disappointed that it's so bad. And I don't know, it's almost like a step backwards. You know, some of their older kits, especially, you know, they're not exactly brilliant and normally they get better, but this one definitely seems to be a big step backwards. Who knows, it could go together like a complete dream and be like a fantastic kit. Just looking at it, it looks like it's got a handful of problems written all over it. And they stand out when you're reviewing it, so I imagine they're going to be pretty nasty when it comes to putting it together. But again, if anybody's built it, let me know and I will shout out for it. Because as I say, a review is only as good as looking at a bit of plastic. It's only when you actually build it, technically a review is worth something, because you can come back then and say it was brilliant, it was terrible, whichever way. But as I say, personal choice with this one. It just doesn't look very good as a kit, unfortunately. But never mind. Okay, so into the news on the actual SIGs and group builds. Obviously, yesterday the D-Day group build started, obviously anniversary of that particular one. That's going to run until the 23rd of November, so you've got loads of time on that, and that's even past Telford, and Telford is obviously the major, it's like Christmas time for modelers. So we got that one. The silver screen SIG obviously finished last week. As I say, just slipped the Star Destroyer in there, literally. But as I say, it's a fantastic one. We had 77 completed entries onto that one. As I say, I've ordered all the medals, everything. Next week will be here. We're going to have a sort of a special show for it, because there's a couple of builds on there that were absolutely fantastic, and I'd love to showcase them to you guys in the wider modelling community, because as I say, obviously you've got a large community with Flory models, but trust me, some of these you guys are going to want to see it as well. So we're going to do a little bit on that one. And then straight off the bat, we've got the Tiger SIG that's going on at the moment. It's going to run till the 14th September. Any type of Tiger you like, as in fighting Tiger, as in tank, not as in row. All right. And then we've got the Fleet Air Arm, the Royal Navy Fleet Air Arm SIG running at the moment as well. That's going to go to the 6th of July. All right. So there's plenty going on and everything else like that. So between that and my other builds on that, it should get quite exciting as we make our way through the summer. Okay, so that's really it for this week. Plenty of show packed into the show again, as you can imagine. So as I say, it was a labour of love for me for the Star Destroyer, so I'm going to leave you with some of the shots from that one. Until next week, everybody, happy modelling and take care.